Is going to FCM a waste of time, as some council members seem to think at this point, because our resolution is probably not going to be discussed on the floor?
It's already been passed.
Okay.
No, for me, it's certainly not a waste of time. The meetings with the big city mayors are really important and really move the ball down the field in many ways. So to give you an example, this year in the federal budget, there was a municipal grant top-up which equaled $68 million for the city of Calgary, and that would not have happened without the big city mayor's advocacy. So for me, it's quite important to be there. It's important this year in particular because there's federal election coming, and all four major party leaders are going to be there, and we'll have the opportunity to buttonhole them a little bit on important urban issues.
But this energy workshop being scheduled at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning, sir?
It's actually not as bad as it sounds. The people who go to these conferences are eager beavers, man. So, usually Elizabeth May, as the fourth party leader, gets that early morning Sunday slot, and it's always packed. So hopefully a lot of people will come.
Is that the panel you're presiding over?
No, so that's a different one. So I'm doing more of an informal panel on Saturday afternoon, which we will be able to, invite people to. It'll be much more of a discussion rather than a more formal panel.
But as you mentioned, this is a divisive topic. At 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning, don't you think you'll have more supporters than people who are angry?
Oh no, I think the other way around.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, these municipal politicians are keeners, let's put it that way. I think it'll be a good conversation.
What difference would a better time slot make then?
None.
None.
So,
Because people plan their day from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. going to stuff at this conference.
You all go to bed at 10 o'clock, right?
I don't. Some people might.
so, yeah, like if it's 7 a.m., the detractors of the industry, wouldn't they say, well, I don't need to go to this because it's 7 a.m., who cares? I can throw out more water balloons at midnight so I don't have to get up early for this thing, right?
I feel a bit the opposite. I think that if there are people who feel strongly about this, they're going to show up.
It's a pretty
Anyway,
sizable.
it's all kind of a ridiculous and irrelevant conversation because people will be there.
It was still a lengthy conversation in there about how we get our message across.
Yeah, now that's important, right? Because the key here is that in standing up for Canada's energy sector, one of our key audiences is municipal politicians across the country to understand how this is important to their own communities. So we'll have a lot of work to do. That 7 a.m. thing is just one tiny piece of a much broader strategy.
And besides politicians, who else, like there was talk initially of trying to get CAP involved, who else is involved?
Yeah, so the Canadian Chamber of Commerce and a bunch of its local chambers are really taking the lead on this, along with different energy advocacy organizations. I'm not sure if CAP themselves are coming, but certainly a lot of folks are.
There was a presentation to the committee this morning from CNRL, and you mentioned that it's important to have a diversity of voices addressing this issue because of credibility issues with some of the existing voices. What did you mean by that?
There's a lot of people who will just go, I'm not listening to people from industry, they're only giving me one spin. And that's one of the reasons why local politicians are a good audience, because people trust their local councillors and their local mayor, and it's important that those folks are well equipped with the information they need as they're talking about these issues in their communities.
We good?
No, not yet.
There's more.
There's more.
Hey, hurry up already.
We have to go. Okay. Do you want to talk about?
We should talk about that Calgary North, the regional transportation planning.
Really?
Well, the links, obviously, and I realize that some of them are longer term projects, but the number of links between Calgary, Airdrie, Chestermere seem to be getting so tight, it almost looks like one city.
Well, this is it's one part of a much more challenging puzzle, which is all around how do we grow in the region. So traditionally, for decades and decades and decades, Calgary grew through annexation. So we're one of the few cities of our size in North America that is really mostly one city. And now the question is, how do we work with these regional partners to create thoughtful growth for the whole region? So Calgary and Chestermere now share a boundary. Rockview County is not between us. And so how do we manage that? And how do we think about that differently so that we're having rational, thoughtful growth that benefits everyone in the region but doesn't put too much strain on Calgary's resources and infrastructure?
So is this like a firm roadmap, so to speak, or is this kind of pie in the sky?
It is literally a roadmap, because it's a roadmap, but it's a map of roads. But none of these are funded, and this conversation also has to happen in a much broader context of regional growth. It's not just about the roads.
Was this a study done by the city of Calgary?
It was done by a bunch of the regional partners at the request of the province.
But you seem to question some of the projects in terms of, is that
It
really
was-
for the benefit of both
Yeah.
sides?
It was a technical analysis and evaluation, and it really has to be evaluated before any decisions are made in the context of what's right for Calgary and what's right for the region.
Any surprises in there? Any of those priorities that were identified that sort of raise questions?
No,
for
I
you?
mean, that's kind of what we knew would come out of it, but the real question is how do you then apply the political and the regional growth filter to it?
Sorry, and these priorities, were they like their city priorities or the consensus with the
They're the
region?
technical consensus of the evaluation. They are not the political or overall priorities of anyone in the region at this point.
It looks like a lot of the priority projects were with Airdrie, which is obviously, because partly because it was just looking at the north.
Yeah.
But certainly
There's a south one going on
there's
as well.
a south one going as well. But certainly, do you think Airdrie is a priority in terms of creating a regional linkage?
Oh, of course. The question is what's the nature of that and what's the nature of growth on each side of that linkage?
One other thing, sir, on FCM,
Yes.
and that is there was talk by some members of the committee about why do we stay part of it, why not pull out of this. There are other things of value to FCM for the city of Calgary.
There's extraordinary value. This energy advocacy thing is a tiny, tiny piece of the work that FCM does. But that said, I'm not sure where that attitude came from in the room because FCM's board actually passed the motion that they should be doing more energy advocacy. So they're actually become an ally in all of this.
Okay. And there are 9 members of council going?
That's what I heard, but I don't know who.
What other issues are you hoping to discuss?
It's really, this meeting is all about the federal election. And it's all about making sure that the issues of Canadians who live in cities are front and center for all of the parties.